All right, welcome to the second episode of the Spidcast. We have our silver adorned teammates here, Todd and Gemma. We will be talking all about 2023, which is what, like 6, 7 decades ago at this point, and their world championship race, how that went and what it meant. Also be diving a little bit into what the PR3 category is over in the Paralympics for them and doing their rowing in the PR3 category. I am joined by our now regular guest on every single Spidcast, Stephen Schaefer. Stephen, how is it going?
It is going. I need to offer a preemptive apology for any poor audio recording quality in here because I'm currently sitting in an apartment surrounded by a bunch of boxes. I am in the thick of getting ready to move to Berlin, but that is not going to stop me from bringing episode 2 of the Spidworks podcast. The Spid Strikes Back. I'm
Yeah.
here to provide the hard-hitting, cross-cutting content, between cycling and rowing. So let's get after it.
That is exactly what we were looking for and why we brought you on last year. We were using our magic 8 ball to look into the future. But hey, good afternoon to our spidtastic teammates, Gemma, Todd. Gemma, you want to introduce yourself to our hundreds of thousands of listeners here?
Yes, let's get it. Hey guys, I'm Gemma. I was in the 2023 World Mixed Double with Todd, where we won silver, and then the 2024 Paralympic boat in Paris, where we won silver as well. Won Para Athlete of the Year in 2024, and now I live in DC and work for a bakery.
Did you get free bread, Gemma?
Free bread.
Free bread, that's it.
On my way.
And Todd, how's it going, man?
Good. Yeah, I'm Todd Vogt. I live in Portland, Oregon. Yes, I was national team, I guess, 5-time national teamer, 19, 21, 22, 23, 24. Rode to the Gemma in 23 in the double, which was awesome. I rode in the double in Paris as well, and we finished in 7th. Yeah, and now I'm back, being a regular person, a semi-regular person.
Amazing. Well, I think we can probably all take our sunglasses off if you want to. We can go back to regular mode instead of spid mode.
Yeah.
But hey, great to have you. I think we want to get into talking through the 2023 World Championship silver medal race. I think that'll be fun to talk through and hear the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think what would be great to start off is, can you talk to everybody about kind of the sport of para rowing, what it means, and what PR3 versus PR2 versus PR1 means? Because I think that may be new to a lot of folks.
Sure. There are 3 Paralympic categories for rowing. PR1 and PR2. PR1 and PR2 are both fixed seat rowing. So PR1 used to be called arms only. So they have 2 straps and it's fixed seat, so no sliding seat. So essentially just are using their arms only, using just arms only. PR2 is also fixed seat, but there's only 1 strap in. So they used to be called trunk and arm. So they're kind of like a rowboat almost. They're using their arms and their trunk and their arms. And PR3 has the athletes have the functional use of their legs, arms, and torso, and they essentially use the standard racing equipment. So PR3 is a lot of times a catch-all category because you have a lot of different disabilities which fall under the PR3 category, like visually impaired athletes or single leg amputees or people with club feet like Gemma or people with neurologic conditions like myself, So yeah, PR3 is a catch-all category, and the athletes use the traditional racing equipment that most people are familiar with, the sliding seat and whatnot, as opposed to the PR1 and 2, which are fixed seat categories. There you go.
Okay. And maybe Gemma, you can tell us a little bit about what the double is and what the difference is because you've raced both of those boats.
Yeah, first I want to start with that in normal, I wouldn't say normal, but collegiate, masters rowing, senior rowing, Olympics, it is all mainly by gender. So you have women's boats race women's boats, men's race men. But in para, it is a mixed boat. And that's the only, para is the only people that do mix. They're starting to incorporate it a bit, but we're really we're the mixed people. Let's go. But so in Pier 1, you have your Paralympic boat is a single. So it's just one person racing their gender. And then Pier 2, it's a mixed double. So you have a woman and a man in the boat. And then Pier 3, we have 2 boats. So we have a 4 and the double. And then the four is 2 women, 2 man, and a coxswain of any gender. And then the double is a man and a woman. So the biggest difference is that the four is a sweep boat, which means you have 1 oar each, and you have a coxswain who's doing the steering, talking to you throughout the whole race, is like a mini coach. Think of it almost like a jockey. And then in the double, you have 2 rowers who are trying to just like get through it, but also having to like make calls, talk to each other, communicate, steer a boat when there's wind blowing you in every direction, which happens in the Serbia race. So it adds a little bit of spice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
One thing to keep in mind with steering too, at least this is more of a practical thing when training, is that when rowing, you're facing the back of the boat, you're facing the stern of the boat. So the boat's going this way, but you're facing that way. So in a sweep boat, whatever, you got a coxswain, they're not going to crash into the bridge more than likely. But, you know, the rowers have to do the particular, you know, however it's designated, somebody in the boat or the rowers of the double is taking care of the steering and making sure they're not crashing into a bridge or another boat or whatever, or a giant log.
Which we really had to focus on.
This makes me think a little bit of tandem bicycles. You know, on a tandem bike, you've got the stoker who sits behind, and then you have the lead rider, and you know they're obviously the rider in front is going to be the one who's steering everything, you know, kind of initiating turns and so forth. Is it a similar thing with the mixed doubles sweep here? Do you have kind of like an assigned role for someone who's going to be doing more of the piloting and the navigating, and someone else is going to be mostly focused on putting their back into the oar, so to speak?
Yeah.
Basically,
So I
yeah.
would say, yeah, when Todd and I were training, he was more because he was in stroke seat, so he was leading, setting the rhythm. He was focused on like hitting the rate, keeping us on split, and I was focused on steering. So and the Boston 2K course, there's a bridge halfway through it, and it's not a big bridge. Like you don't have a lot of room to go through, and so that was always a heart attack. But then when we went to Serbia, we actually ended up kind of switching because when you're in the lanes, you have 2 lane lines in front of you, and so the stroke seat can actually see the spacing better and make sure you're in the middle.
Yes.
So did you still steer from where you were sitting?
Like kind of, but it was because we're right next to each other, we can kind of talk. So it would be like we need port pressure. But we put it mainly on Todd because I have him in front of me, so I can't see the lane lines exactly. And I was like, you can see it, so you got this.
I can usually see the horizon back behind me, so I can say, okay, you know, Gemma will say this is straight, and then I'll just like choose a smokestack on the horizon and just like do what it takes to keep the stern deck right even with that smokestack, you know. So if
Mhm.
you like, Stephen, I want to go back to your example of riding a tandem if both people were facing the back wheel, though.
Oh, this is a good point. I didn't consider this. I'm imagining now like almost like rally car drivers calling out directions, but they're both sitting backwards and they're exerting themselves quite heavily. So yeah.
Which one thing that I'll also mention that's a challenge is like there's some places where like in Princeton where the women's national team trains on Mercer Lake in Casperton, that area there. It's just on the race course, so it's relatively straight. But in Boston, where we did most of our training, the river, if you look at the map of it, it's like serpentine. It goes like this, first of all. And there's probably like between the extent, say from the basin all the way up to CRI, that's probably the extent of the whatever that is, 8 kilometers, whatever. I don't know how many bridges are there. There's probably like 8 bridges too. So it
Yeah,
was a challenge in training.
there's
Like
a lot.
you know, it's a challenge to train to be in the bow seat and do the steering on a double and training it on the Charles River.
And one thing I think that you probably do share more than folks understand is, I mean, Stephen, when you're on the bike, what's your primary propulsion mechanism as far as your body? It's I would guess your legs.
It is your legs. Yep. Yep. I mean, maybe when you're sprinting, you're engaging the core and your upper body a little bit, but that's, you know, maybe 15, 20 seconds. So
I think when folks see a rowing stroke, they're seeing you hold on to oars and handles, you know, with your arms, and they assume, I mean, you've just got to have massive shoulders and biceps and everything. But
What we do,
I suspect that's probably maybe Todd the Bod, yes. But yeah, maybe talk to a little bit about like when you're rowing, how much of the body you're using, and is it, you know, really legs more so than, you know, people give it just for like arms?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely more legs. I want to see people say, I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but it's like 70% legs, 20% your body and your back, and then the 10% arms. But a big part of it is that like hang on the oar. So when you're at the catch position, which is your most compressed position, you're pushing with your legs, but you're putting your whole body weight on this oar. And that's how you leverage your body weight. And that's really how you actually move the boat. So instead of just like lifting weight, you're leveraging the weight, if that makes sense.
It's like doing a clean almost, like doing a clean in the weight room. As an analogy, like you don't lift the bar off the ground with your arm.
Right. It's interesting to hear it's only about 10% arm, but this makes me think a little bit about being on the bike and learning how to do bunny hops. I think when I first started trying to learn how to do them with really terrible form, um, I would try to, use my arms to really like pull the front wheel up. And then eventually I realized, if you just stand up and try to jump over something on the floor, you jump with your legs, not with your arms. Your legs are what is doing all the hard work, and obviously that's the same in running and cycling, and as I'm discovering in rowing.
Your legs are just so much stronger than everything else. The more you can use your legs, the better off you are, you know?
I guess maybe before we get into talking about Belgrade, would you be able to share a little bit more about like kind of your history and how you got into para rowing and kind of what that meant to be able to compete at the national team level?
Yeah, I can do that. So I was born with a club foot, which in the easiest terms, my ankle is fixed and I can't run or jump. So I spent a lot of my childhood going through a ton of different sports: soccer, basketball, swimming, volleyball, field hockey, lacrosse, like you name it. I definitely did it. And then kind of just gave up at some point and it was just like, I can't do this anymore. My body's in pain, my foot's in pain. I'd come home crying every night just because I had like excruciating pain going up my legs and all of that. And then my sister found Annapolis rowing. We lived in Annapolis, Maryland at the time. And then I tried it out and I was like, this is awesome. I got to sit on the water and enjoy it. And that was just something to keep me busy at first. Then realized, okay, I'm actually kind of good at this. Let's keep it going. Was able to get recruited to college. And then at college, one of my coach's friends came down and he had a contact who was a director of para rowing and they were talking about my foot and everything. And then that's how I kind of got pushed into like led into the para team. But it truly was like life changing, I would say. And I'm so grateful for that introduction because one, it introduced me to a ton of amazing people, Todd included, and you guys. And then also I had never met anyone else with a club foot before. And so our Paris boat was actually all club feet athletes. So Sky, Ben, and Alex all had club feet. We were able to talk about our own experiences and just like bond with each other over that. So truly an amazing experience. And it made me fall back in love with my disability because when I was getting into high school, I despised my foot. I hated it. I was like, it's holding me back. I'm so different, and really like that negative talk. And finding para and being able to like go through this avenue and row for the national team really made me fall back in love with who I am and what I was meant to be doing.
I'll try to keep this brief because I'm old here. But I started rowing as a freshman in college. I was a walk-on at University of Buffalo. They had a little small club team. Well, I think the things I remember about this, there was a flyer outside my dorm room that said, "Get fit, meet friends." I was like, all right, sounds interesting. I went to the initial meeting. There's like 100 people there. The coach is there showing videos. And I remember seeing a video of some like major collegiate or international race and two men's eights like battling down the course. They crossed the finish line and all the rowers are like slumped over their oars looking like they're going to die. And I was like, oh, I can do that. That looks fun, you know? And, also, and I think it also was something effective that I perceived early, I think I thought to myself, if a big part of the sport is just about hurting yourself and pushing yourself physically pretty hard, I think I can do that, you know? And I also realized with rowing it compared to a lot of other sports, you didn't necessarily have to be naturally good at it. Like a lot of it was, just related to the effort you put in. So the more work you put in on the erg, on the rowing machine, on the bike, running, like there was a real direct, more strokes you put in, there's a real direct correlation between hard work and your success, you know? Now, I'll say one funny thing. My roommate and I both went to initial meeting. The first practice was like a timed 2 mile run and a bunch of calisthenics. And all we did was run every day for the first week. He went to the first practice and never went back. I went to the first practice and like, that's it. I'm doing this for the rest of my life, you know? So it was anyways, rode throughout college, rode at like the club sort of national and the sub-national level for a couple years afterwards. Then in the early 2000s, I moved to Portland, Oregon. That's where I live now. Just got a job and became like a master's rower. Was doing that for a while. That was great. I started coaching rowing in around 2008, 2009. I was sort of working my way up the collegiate coaching hierarchy. Then in 2018 is where everything sort of took a took a turn. And I was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I was 42 to 43 years old at the time. Initially thought I was done rowing. I didn't think I would be able to compete. I didn't think I would be able to coach anymore because I was just feeling terrible. But then I realized that, and this is what I like to say is like being an obsessed rowing nerd paid off at this point because I knew about the Paralympics. I knew that I knew that rowing was in the Paralympics. I'd actually met some of the Paralympic rowers who rowed in 2012. So I knew about it. So I looked up what it takes to get classified it, and I saw the PR3 criteria. I was like, oh, I fit that criteria. I think I can get classified. Then I looked on Concept 2. Concept 2 is great. They make the rowing machine that all rowers use, right? They have a huge online database of scores on the rowing machine. So I looked up the 2,000 meter times, the 2K erg. That's like the standard for rowers, right? So I looked up the 2K erg times for like the American Paralympic team, the like British team, like all this info was out there. So I just scoured the internet and found out it's like the German team, the Italians. And I found out it's kind of like, I wasn't going to be the fastest guy, but I definitely would have been the slowest. I was like in the middle of the sort of range, I was like, oh, I'm fat I'm faster than the slowest guys on the para team around the world, right? And I think I classify. So I just sent an email off to Ellen, the high performance director, in the spring of 19. And she's like, yeah, if you can get classified, she may be doing a bunch of erg workouts, send some video. She's like, yeah, if you can get classified, you can come to selection camp. So I like scrambled, got classified, and then like went off to camp in Boston the summer of 2019 and got the ball rolling. Like that 2019 summer when I made the team, I didn't make the 4, which was the priority boat, but I ended up in a pair, like a secondary event, a men's pair. We went, it was fun. Like me and this guy, Andy, we went to Worlds. We finished in 6, which is our nice way of saying it. There's only 6 entries, but so we finished in 6. But that was like good motivation.
At least you didn't finish 7th, Todd. That would have been rough.
Yeah, the next year was going to be Tokyo, right? So that was 2000. So I was like, I'm going home. I'm going to get a lot faster. So I went home, trained really hard with the goal to get to selection camp. So, but then COVID came around, so it actually helped me. Weird as it is to say, because all I had for the next year was train. Like I had my own boat. I had my own in my garage. I had tricked out. I have weights and bikes and an erg. So I just like sat on the erg or sat in the single or sat in the weight room all day for like a year and a half. Got invited to selection camp. Finished 3rd in the hierarchy. So in Tokyo, the only Paralympic boat was the 4. The double wasn't added. It wasn't part of the Paralympic program. So it was just the 4. So it was just 2 seats. So I finished in 3rd in the hierarchy. It was, I was named the alternate for the team. So I technically made the team, but I didn't go to Tokyo. All I got was a t-shirt out of the deal. That's my saying I made the Tokyo team, but all I got was a t-shirt. So I actually thought about quitting after Tokyo. I kept thinking to myself, like, this 2 years in a row where I finished 3rd in the hierarchy. The 4 is the priority boat. I'm like, I'm never going to make. I'm always going to get beat out by some dude who's 25 and rows better than I do. So I was like, I don't know. But then they added the IPC added the double. So I was like, oh, this is what, and I scull like every day primarily. So I was like, I was like, oh, I classify for the double. There's, it's only 3 years to go. I keep finishing 3rd in the hierarchy. Now there's 3 seats. So I'm like, oh, maybe this is an option, So stuck around, rode in that boat in 22 with a different girl, Pearl, who lives in Portland still. She's like one of my friends. That year, we had done well early in the season at 22. I'm sorry to give you a lot of backstory here. Like we went overseas and won our preparatory race in Italy in May, which was kind of a shock to us. So we had like pretty high hopes going to Worlds, but we finished in 5th out of 6. So we beat 1 boat, but which is actually like, I remember being pretty furious after that race, like, or not furious, just like frustrated because I really worked hard that year. I PR'd on a bunch of on the ergometers and various distances. And I thought I put a ton of time in the water. So I was like, that's it. I was like, that's it. I'm going to go home and do whatever it takes. So we're supposed to take like 3 weeks off after Worlds in 22. I went home and took like 3 days off, got over the jet lag and was like, that's it. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get into a boat that has a chance to win a medal. That training year of 2023 and build up to the camp was awesome. Like I didn't miss a single day. I don't think from sickness, like injury, PR'd on I would call like, I didn't. It's not a lifetime PR, but I was close to my lifetime PR for 2K on the erg. I posted like 6K PR on the erg. Yeah, like I was fired up that year, and I got hooked up with an awesome partner too.
I think we could have an entire episode on just training for rowing, training for cycling, and the way those kind of match up. But yeah, let's keep the stories coming here.
Can you talk? So we're talking about 2023 and then Paris 2024. So what was the significance of this race in particular for, I guess, you two, the U.S. team? Talk us through, and was there some pressure that came with that?
Okay, 2023 was the qualification year. So basically, the year before you qualify the boats only for Paris. So you don't qualify the people in the boat. It is just like the actual boat. So they made two really strong PR3 boats. So the four and the double, we were able to qualify them both. Spoiler, but leading up to it, they didn't really like. And when we first started training, it wasn't a big conversation point. But then as we slowly got closer to Serbia and the race, it started coming up more like, yeah, we have to get, I forget, Todd, do you remember what place it was? Maybe like fifth
It was
or
fifth.
sixth?
Yeah, top five. So just to
Yeah, you
bring
had
this
to get
point up,
top
like,
five to qualify.
the top 5 countries will automatically have an entry in Paris the following year. Country is not automatically guaranteed an entry in the Paralympics. So
Yeah, so we had that pressure. And what else? Oh, and then it was also, personal pressure. It was my first national team. And with that came with classification. So all para athletes, you get like US classified, so like your own country classified. And then you have to get internationally classified at a world rowing race. And it just happened to be that we had a race in Paris that summer, but my first like world rowing race was world champs. And so I got classified 3 days beforehand. But there's a good chance you couldn't get classified because the double is like a higher classification. So
yeah,
I was
maybe you can
there
explain
was
the
some
process of
mix.
classification.
Yeah, so basically classification is a horrific process. Let me just start with that.
Yeah, it's stressful. It is
Basically, your
stressful.
whole life as a disabled athlete person, you are hiding your disability. You're trying to prove to everyone that you're fine, that you're just an athlete. Especially when you go row at like college, you're trying to blend in as best you can because there's no para teams in college. So you really just are shoving it down, trying to hide it. And you 3 days before your race or a couple days before your race, you have to bring out all of like the little things you're insecure about and have to show this decision maker your full disability so that they can then decide how disabled you are and if you can race 3 days before like the biggest race of your life at this moment.
Not
So
not the
it's
best
definitely
mental
fun.
prep. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Todd was already classified at this point, but it was just me that had to go through the process for our boat at this time. And then it was a bit of a disaster, but we ended up getting through it. People made a couple mistakes. I was in tears. People were trying to comfort me. Todd was probably like freaking out. It was a crazy adventure, but in the end, we were classified.
Because if there's a threshold of numbers, there's a numeric threshold here. I'll give you an example, like quick example. Like my right wrist is like pretty much totally unaffected, right? I have full range of motion. I can flex it. I can move. My left wrist is like a train wreck. I can barely move my left wrist. So this would be like 0 points. This would be 5 points. And so then they run through your whole body. And if you hit a certain threshold, whatever it is, 150, you are officially messed up. So it's like the only time you want to officially be like really bad. You, like
Yeah.
Gemma said, most athletes like hide their disability, try to blend in, but this is the only time you want to be really screwed up. So
Oh man. Yeah.
And they're
yeah, so
picking apart everything. They have like the measurer out, seeing the like for my
yeah,
foot, they're like measuring angles, pushing you and like trying to figure out where your limit is. So pushing you in uncomfortable positions, picking apart, like, well, try that again, do that again. And you're just
yeah.
like, what is happening?
But if like Gemma wouldn't have classified, that would have been it. We wouldn't have raced. So,
Yeah.
there would have been another opportunity next summer or something next spring, but not at Worlds that year where that would have been it. We would have been disqualified. So,
I can imagine how very detailed and meticulous and potentially, yeah, really upsetting this process would be because they also need to make sure that people are not just air quotes faking it, right?
Yeah,
Um,
friendly. Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
so yeah, I full respect to going through all that. Like that takes a lot of emotional reserves, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more question, and then we'll bring up the race, and we'll do a race walkthrough, and I'll have Steven do the race call because it'll be funny to see actually what questions you're going to ask. Hey,
I
why is
am
everyone facing backwards?
I don't know what I'm about to witness.
It'll be great. Um, so, as far as kind of like mental state, because I know you said it got kind of real once you got closer to the date. Your coach at that point was Andrea, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Who actually we know through the canoe club since she's friendly with our canoe folks. Maybe talk a little bit about just briefly, like maybe who she is, and then how did she get you all kind of pumped for the race, knowing that you had a lot of stuff on the line and maybe some uncomfortable moments leading right up to the start line too.
All right, this is good because I have a little backstory too in the build up to the final. We'll just show the final, but there's more to the story too. So, first of all, Andrea is great. I love Andrea. She's an Olympian herself. I think she's a two-time. Was she an alternate? And she rode in '96. Was she the alternate in '92? I'm trying to remember. So she two-time
I think
Olympian.
so.
She's a beast. She was close to the world record on the ergometer. She's awesome. Super nice. So yeah, she was our coach, but I don't know. Yeah, she was great. She was super helpful. I love Andrea. Can't say enough good things about her. I was going to give a little more backstory in the build up to the final. So there was three races. There's our preliminary heat, and then what they call a second chance race, which is called the repechage. Like the progression is a little unusual. They've changed it since, but you had the progression was the winner of the heat automatically advanced to the final 5 days later. All the rest of there was two heats, so everybody from second to sixth place advanced to the repechage 2 days later, and then the top three or four, whatever the criteria was, top three or four from the repechage automatically went to the final. Whatever the breakdown, I guess it would have been top three. So it's six boats, and then there's two. I guess it was top two from the repechage, right? That makes sense. That adds up to be six. So, anyways, backstory even before that, like Gemma had a cold. I blame you, Gemma, although it's probably not. So Gemma had a cold right before he left. The day we flew to
Definitely
Serbia,
me.
I like woke up and my throat is kind of scratchy and I'm not feeling great. I'm like, whatever. We got 8 days until until our preliminary heat because we left early to acclimate and train. So I get to Belgrade. I'm just feeling awful all week. Like it's not getting better at all. Like I have like after maybe 3-4 days, the cold and flu symptoms go away. So but now I just have no energy. I can like barely get out of bed to like row at all. I'm like, how am I going to race? I have no energy. I'm like talking to Andrea and our team doctors, and they wanted to give me a COVID test, but I didn't want to do a COVID test because I tested positive. I would have been stopped from racing. And I didn't think it was that, but anyway, so
And I'm convinced we probably had COVID.
I probably did. So we're training like we were training pretty hard. There wasn't much of a taper to be honest, but it was hot, and so every day I'm just like dragging my butt out of bed, go to the team bus. Like I have no energy I have no appetite, so I don't even eat anything. I just like go to the team bus, row in the heat, sweat my butt off, come back, lay in bed. And I was feeling that, like, even up to the day of the preliminary heat, I'm like, how am I going to race in this heat? The morning of the heat, I like went to bed early the night before, woke up, but I still like could barely get out of bed. My roommate Andrew Mangan, who's still on the team, he's the PR1 for the US. Like every day, would like I'd say to him the same thing. I'm like, Andrew, I'm feeling a little better. By like 7 days of that, he's like, are you really feeling any better, Todd? I'm like, well, are you just saying that, psychologically? I'm like, oh, I think it's just psychological, but. So even for our preliminary heat, like I felt terrible like that morning. So I limped through the first 1K. I don't know. And then yeah, then I realized it felt better. But luckily, the repechage, I felt pretty good. I felt way better. And by the final, I felt pretty much close to normal. So, but I was freaking out about it. I was like, how am I going to even row? I was worried I was going to end up in like the medical tent, for our preliminary heat. I'm like, how am I even going to like do a 2K, like feeling like garbage? So, anyways, that's my part
As
of the
as
backstory.
as
I'll
someone
stop
who's
there.
been there, the only thing that matters is how you feel on the starting line, right?
Yeah.
So
So, anyway, that's my little bit of backstory in the build up.
Gemma, anything else you wanted to add to the race prep or working with coach?
Yeah, I can add some stuff here. So, I think another big, I don't know if it's a challenge, but another thing that happened, like we did a lot of prep for like things to go wrong. Just because you never know what's gonna happen. You never know if the wind's gonna blow. You never know if like are communicating, if we're like too tired to communicate with each other, that like I can't get a word out. And also because I was sick, I was pumping my inhaler and couldn't talk half the time. And I was also meant to be making all the race calls. So Todd and I would like have talks like a couple days before the race, being like, as soon as we see this marker, we have to do this if I can't call it. And so we were really like getting inside each other's brains. But another thing we prepped for was, I mean, Todd, you can maybe go into this if you want, but his Parkinson's was getting worse on his hand. And so with rowing, you have like to like, what's the right word? Like flip your blade. I haven't rowed in a while. I don't remember these terms.
Rotate? I don't know.
Your oar goes like
Yeah,
that.
square and feather. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
right word.
Yeah.
And
my
so you
God.
have to square and feather your blade. And so we would train to take that part out of it just in case something went bad. We would train on the square, which is really difficult in like wind conditions. And I have a practice like burned into my memory. We did 4 I think it was like 4 by 20 minute on the square in wind in Boston, like against like a headwind, and they were just like we just had to stay on the square. And it's really difficult when you're two people on the square trying to balance the boat. There's a lot of like flipping flopping, but we really did it. And we would practice at like our sprints, we would stay on the square. And so that was a fun part that is really like para specific, that in like college or other things you don't really think about that. You don't have to make those adjustments or changes. But yeah, Todd, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, what happens, like I mentioned, is my left wrist is like the part of my body that's most impacted. What happens is I've lost this a lot of dexterity in my left wrist, and so with rowing, it's unfortunately, like my right wrist has this like you have to have this like fine dexterity in your fingers and your thumbs to spin the oar. Like as you approach the catch, the front of you have to sort of roll your hands forward. Sorry, I'm getting right in the mirror, that's in the camera. And as you approach the end of the stroke, you have to sort of flick the oar to make it go back to parallel, right? So it requires this little fine dexterity, but my left wrist like just doesn't have the dexterity. So which is it's fine at like lower tempo and lower pressure, like in practice, but at full rate and full speed, like it can just overwhelm the capacity of my fore. Like I have to use a lot rather than using my fine dexterity, I end up using like the muscles of my forearm and my elbow, which is not what you want to do. And so sometimes my forearm and elbows would just cramp up during like super high rate and super high intensity stuff because I'm using all the wrong musculature to compensate for the lack of dexterity. So
Do you feel like that extra practice and doing things differently made it so that when you had to row just, the way that you wanted to, it made that even better because you had just so much more
certainly.
knowledge of how stuff was going potentially?
Yeah, I would say that. And also, the other thing, Gemma, I'm sure you're probably going to mention it too, is we rode. The other thing that we did a lot is we rode the part of the river where we rode in Boston was called what they call the basin. It's right near where the river empties out into the harbor, which is fine, but it's super rough generally. It's not, well, it can be rough or it can be flat, but more than likely it's not going to be perfectly smooth. So we did a lot of preparation in rough water. So the final was, when we show the video, was pretty rough, but which
Yeah,
actually
I
worked to
have
our
it pulled
benefit.
up.
We're like, oh, this is like a regular. We're just like, oh, this is like a regular day back home in Boston. So here we go.
All right, I will
Yeah.
pull it up, and Steven, you'll be our race broadcaster here.
Wow. Race broadcaster. Okay. Well,
Uh,
proud to share that I've done exactly zero preparation for this. So buckle up, everyone.
it's amazing.
We're gonna.
I figure you'll be the right person to ask questions along the way on what's happening at this point. So I will
We can
hit the
mention
play
two other
button.
things about our warm up and two things that jump to mind about the warm up. Right. Well,
Yeah,
Oh
let's
yeah,
hear it.
let's talk about the warm up.
the warm up area is behind the boat. So like we warmed up from the start line pass, and there's like a loop behind the boat, so to speak, and that area was calm. So we were like sitting over. What first thing is like I remember one point there was a nude beach right where we sort of like warmed up right by where we stopped. So you like stop, take a drink of Gatorade, and there's like a bunch of 70-year-old naked men playing volleyball over there.
Okay, not fun. I was gonna ask about how long of a warm up would you take for an event like this? And well, maybe before you even answer that question, how long is this race from start to finish? How long is the effort?
2,000 meters.
2,000 meters. Okay. So,
Yeah. So it's about like 7
okay,
minutes.
7 minutes. All right. Curious to know how you warm up for a 7 minute maximal effort here.
So you start mainly like at the finish line, and to row up to the start, I mean, you have other races going on, so that's more like drill. So you're just like getting your boat feel back, doing a little
Mhm.
bit of steady state coming in. But before you're gonna even get on the water, you're doing a little bit of steady state, get the blood moving, get everything rolling.
Mhm.
Then once you get up to the start, there's a little circle above the start line, and you start with like medium rates, just getting like your like getting moving, getting that, and then you really just like there's just steps. You build it up, you build it up, you build it up. You practice your moves,
Mhm.
you practice your starts, you practice anything you ever want to practice, different drills. Like you, as a boat, you figure out what you need to prepare yourself for 2,000 meters. Because really, like you launch maybe 40 minutes before your start time, and there's
Okay.
also
Yeah.
6 other boats with other heats and what going, so you have to work around other people, so you can't have this like perfect, this is exactly what I do, I want
Mm.
to do this, A,
Mhm.
B, C, D, E. You have to be ready to change it.
It's not quite like in a bike race where I might have a warm-up routine that I could do on a trainer or some rollers, and then I can rock up to the start line in about 5 or 10 minutes to go, and then go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say during practice, if you have to do like a hard practice, if you're warming up for a hard practice, you can do a lot longer. Like I might warm up for 30, 40 minutes on, just cruising with and then a few speed bursts here and there. But actually when racing, like there's not a ton of distance actually. We only have like about 4 kilometers of actual space to warm up in approximately. So like Gemma said, the key thing, like I spend about probably 20, 30 minutes on land beforehand, spinning on the erg or on the bike and then stretching out. So you get good and warmed up on land, and then you do your like specific warm up on the water of about 30 minutes or so.
Well, I think there's also nothing like pre-race adrenaline to get you ready. So,
Yeah. And on top of that, so you then pull into these starting blocks, which is what we're looking at here. And so there's a person holding the boat, but in order to get there, you have to row a little bit past and then back in, which is really difficult in wind.
mhm.
And then they lift up these boots. They're these clear boots, and you have to get your bow ball in it so that they can see if there's like a false start.
Mhm.
And that's a challenge in itself when
Yeah.
there's crosswinds, people are talking at you, you have all the race nerves.
This
And
water
so you
looks
warm
really
up.
choppy too. I mean, you got to fight all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You warm up and then you probably maybe sit there for 10 minutes
Yeah, you sit
and
there
then
quite a
go full
while,
max.
just
Perfect.
freaking out a
That's
bit,
awful.
Yeah.
So
That's awful right there. I don't like that.
So
the start is almost like, I don't know,
Oh
on
gosh.
cycling, I'm trying to find an analogy like a BMX start, kind of, where there's like that little chute and that little plastic thing up against the front of the wheel, right?
Mhm.
Like, what do
Mhm.
they do for
Yeah.
Steven? What do they do for a time trial? They just hold you, right? You're not actually
They
something
hold you. They
physically
hold you from
stopping you.
behind. Yeah, somebody will be holding onto your saddle and then like pinching the rear wheel with their knees if they're smart and not tilting you over a whole bunch like they sometimes do. Um, but yeah, you'll be able to get a hold. You'll be clipped in, and you'll be ready to just basically do a track stand start and get going. But yeah, I think we should roll the tape and I want to talk a little bit more about what it feels like to start one of these races.
All right, well, let's set the field here. Oh, we can stop for a second here. All right, it's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was going to
yeah,
skip like 7 minutes. There you go. So on the far lane,
yeah.
that's Australia in the far lane. That's lane 1. France in lane 2, coming closer. Brazil lane 3. Us in lane 4, kind of smack dab in the middle. The Germans in lane
Hmm.
5, and Great Britain in lane 6. So like we were saying, there's 2 races within this race. There's the race to make sure you come in the top 5, so you get a spot in the Paralympics. Then there's the race for medals, right? So
Of all your competing boats here, who do you have your eyes on as like these are going to be the teams to beat?
Yeah, so normally you would have like lane 3 and lane 4 would be your fastest, just like it's like swimming. I don't know if they do it in biking as well, but then they switched it. So because of the wind, your lane 1 and 2 were your heat winners, and then Todd and I and Brazil won the reps, and then Germany and GB came second in the reps.
Okay,
yeah.
I see.
So we're
Okay. Oh, wait,
theoretically
one
like
second
ranked
here.
third, fourth.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that we had finished third in our heat. We had a pretty good time in our heat, even though we finished third in our heat. In the repechage, we won our rep by quite a bit. So, I mean, I was after winning the rep, I was like, oh yeah, we're going to be in the mix here. We're like somewhere in the middle. So, I figured that we were ranked like third or fourth, like coming into the final. So, based off the rep.
a medal was a real option.
Yeah, I thought so.
All right.
Josie, our high performance director, like Josie, our coach, Ellen, one of our coaches, Ellen, and the high performance director of US Rowing both said something like, with a race like this in rougher water, it puts a more of a premium on just raw horsepower, which we had, like meaning like speed on the
Hmm.
ergometer. Like Gemma's crazy fast on the ergometer, close to the world record for para women. I don't know, maybe you broke it. I don't know. And I'm no slouch on the erg, so I figured we have more raw
RP3.
horsepower than anybody out there in the race. That's my thought process going in.
Yeah. And so
So
is this you're in lane 4, so if I'm seeing this correctly, are you in the lead then at this point? Right here off
No,
the
so
gate?
we're in
we're like
fifth
You're
somewhere in
at
the
fifth.
the
middle.
moment.
We're in fourth, maybe. Four,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, wait a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Yeah. I see. So everyone's pretty much
There you
neck and
go.
neck. I mean, I just want to talk a little bit more about start here too, because I know if I'm doing like a criterium or time trial, being able to get off of the line really fast, get like a good clip in, is absolutely crucial, especially at a criterium, where you really want to like race for the first corner, or a cyclocross race where you start every single race with a full sprint, knowing that I will get an opportunity to maybe like coast a little bit and recover and settle into more of a steady rhythm. What's your mentality here in the first 30 seconds of the race?
To get as far as you can before the lactic acid hits. That's
So
literally it. So we start with like 5 quick strokes,
Hmm.
and it's different slide lengths. So it's like 3/4, half, 3/4, length, and full. And then you go into like a high 20, like just like get it in and out, and you're just trying to take the strokes, getting your free strokes before lactic acid hits. And then it really starts hitting, and you're like, oh, we're in it. And then you have to shift down because that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
But so it's really like 30, 40 strokes of getting ahead.
yeah, the thing that's unique to rowing is that because you're facing, the back, there's like a little bit of a psychological advantage. And you also want to make sure if you get too far behind another crew, you're going to be in their wake, which disrupts your rowing. So it's maybe not necessarily physiologically smart, but you got to go hard the first minute. You got to put yourself in the mix or else you're going to be too far behind to do anything.
Yeah. And in a race like this, is there much in the way of like draft type dynamics from the other boats, your competitors? You talked a little bit about the wake, but what influence do your competitors have on your speed and your effort apart from, obviously wanting to be the first across the line?
I would say like psychology a little bit. I mean, more than anything, like you can see
Hmm.
the other
More
boats, you can hear the other
psychological.
rowers. So it's, yeah. And so, and if, the coolest races at all in racing are the row where they call it when you're stroke for stroke with another crew, when you're side by side and
Hmm.
oars are pretty much going in and out of them. You basically at that moment, each crew is going as hard as they possibly can, trying to move their boat just like a fraction ahead of the other boat.
Yeah. Yeah. So looks rough. Yeah.
Okay,
Tell
more
me
right.
about how you're feeling about halfway through, or as we're nearing a kilometer through here. What kind of thoughts are going through your minds at this point?
So right now you're in a lot of pain. You have crossed the 750 line. Really, you're at 1250 left. Only once you hit 1K are you like, okay, we can do this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of you're fighting the negative thoughts. Really, you're fighting thoughts like, can we hold this? You're also looking like we're in second now. So we like in the corner of my eye, I could see Australia, and
Hmm.
I could see, okay, we're still there. We could make a move, all of that. But we're also looking at the field in front of us and making sure that we don't make a mistake or someone doesn't make a move on us. So
Hmm.
you're playing like offense and defense at the same time when you're in the middle of a situation, like between the two boats like that.
Okay, so it's pretty cerebral here. You're still really trying to measure out your effort here, and that's got to be especially tricky since it's not just you as an individual, but it's also your boatmate here. Like maybe talk to me a little bit about how you two synchronize your efforts and a sprint and like physically how you're doing.
Yeah. I think you always have like a race plan. Every crew before a race has what they call some sort of race plan, meaning, okay, first 5 strokes are sort of these little fractional strokes, 20 strokes at a slightly higher rate, or 30 strokes or
Hmm.
40 strokes, and then shift down to your basic your cadence of say 34 strokes a minute. And then at 1,000 meters to go, we're gonna, take 10 strokes where we just give it everything we got to try to make a move or bring it up with 250 to go.
Hmm.
There's like always some sort of plan that everybody in the crew knows. And in a double, because there's no coxswain, like in a cox boat, like Gemma was in the four, the coxswain just runs the race plan, so to speak. They're the brains of the
Yeah.
operation. In a double, like we gotta like communicate, like, now it's time to go. We gotta take it up. Go, go, go.
So yeah, it's a little more. It sounds like it's a little more intuitive, a little more about that personal connection that you have with with your boat mate here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard. Like I said, I listened to I listened to your talk about your race in Arizona, and you had a teammate with you, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, this is kind of like rowing, because you're just like, we got to go now. We got to. This is it.
yeah.
Go right now. There's like moments where you sort of sense that the race is important.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure you can sense exactly those same moments. I know in my case, being in a breakaway move with my companion, Nikos, that's very similar to this. That's like we are placing complete faith in one another, to each give our maximum ability. And we know that like, okay, we need to settle into a sustainable rhythm, and we know that it's better to keep it simple. You do 1 minute, I do 1 minute. I see how you're doing. Like I'm really measuring my effort, but I'm also keeping super close tabs on my teammates' effort as I'm going. And you can imagine in races where maybe you're to break away with more people, you're constantly trying to build this intuition for how everyone is doing, so that you can, I don't know, stab them in the back later and win the race. But yeah, Peter, what's I'll let you run the show here.
No, yeah, I just wanted to call out one quick thing. So there's a really good close up of you all rowing. First of all, great
Beautiful shot
suntans
right
and
there.
great sunglasses. It's really incredible. But I think it was Gemma said something about, you don't want to mess up. And I think that really unique dynamic of your back is to the lead, but maybe you can catch him out of periphery and you're looking at the field in front of you. I imagine you said it hurt, but you must have been feeling decent that you could see everybody and you had open water. But when you talked about messing up, and this is not to say Todd was messing up, but I thought it was an illustration of what could potentially happen. You've got the rough water is causing splashing on the backstroke, which is totally normal. I mean, you can hit whatever. But I'm not sure if everybody is as familiar with what can happen in rowing to cause an air quote mess up, because that's a pretty unique scenario.
So there's this really traumatic experience called catching a crab. And what it is there's this crab underwater that grabs your oar and flips it and pulls it down.
Uh,
Just kidding. There's a current. So if you moving in the water, there's the currents that you're fighting against. And if you have obviously this long stick in your hand that one hand is controlling, let's say the wind takes it, you hit the water the wrong way, it can slip into the water at an angle that then the water takes control and it flies out of your hand and it stops the boat.
oh,
So it is called catching a crab, and it can get really nasty, and some people can get ejected out of a boat, and it can leave some bad bruises, and it can probably be like give you PTSD. Like, you can really go through it.
yeah.
I was gonna
Luckily, no
say, I
crabs
mean,
were caught
It's
here.
it's kind of like a bike crash.
yeah.
This is almost like a bike crash. Yeah.
Yeah, and they can like
Wow.
Gemma said, you can have just like a little crab where the boat will wobble, or to the full on ejector crab, as it's called, where it nails you in the chest, where the oar doesn't exit the water properly, the handle keeps going, hits you in the chest, and you go flying out the side. That's rare. Let's just say
Yeah.
that the
Yeah.
mini crabs are not that uncommon.
This is a beautiful shot. You can see you're getting close to the finish line here. Um, so this is, you said, like a 7 or 8 minute effort total, right? Um, you're near the end here. I mean, I know you're feeling probably that you're obviously feeling the brunt of the effort, but what are you thinking now? Like, okay, this is going to come down to some kind of a sprint, 500 meters to go. When do we kind of time our final push and our final effort? Walk me through how that
Yes.
goes.
Yeah, so at 500, I'm trying to remember back to our race plan, but I'm pretty sure we started sprinting around that 500 race mark. And so you have 250 meters of yellow in the last 500s. There's 250 meters of yellow buoys and there's
Hmm.
250 meters of red buoys.
Hmm.
And red buoys, like you are going at that point, you are going all out.
Empty
Like
the
there's
tank.
nothing going on.
Yeah.
You're not thinking. It is just blade in, blade out. How fast can I go? So this is the more like strategical sprinting. We're taking it up slowly. We're building it up together and just trying how much more can we inch onto Australia? How much more can our
Hmm.
time, like, where can we find that time together?
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
in
once you hit the red
cycling,
buoy,
typically we go ahead.
I was gonna say, once you hit those red buoys, that's like 250 to go, like Gemma said. That's like a minute to go, depending on the race, maybe less, depending on the boat class. But
Oh,
once
okay.
you hit the red buoys to go, that's all out. you just put the blinders on and go as absolutely hard as you can with what you've got left for the last 45
Here we
seconds.
go. Yeah, we hit that spot. Yeah, I know in cycling, in many cases, it's kind of the last 200 meters, and it's like a 15-second to maybe a 20-second effort that everyone really wants to play chicken and try and hold on to keep their powder dry until then. But this is a little bit of a different dynamic, right? I mean, it really is just kind of you versus the water at this point. As we can see there, Australia still inching ahead. Obviously,
Yeah,
emptying
and
the
I think
tanks and go on. Yeah,
another thing to add into this is we were comfortably in silver at this point.
yeah,
Water's rough. Australia is like a good bit ahead where you're like, okay, at some point you're not going to make the whole time back
right.
unless something happens to their boat. That I also remember thinking like we just need to hold on to what we're doing right now. Like we don't really need to take that next step to get that one little bit more because there is that gap between us. We just need to stay clean, get the blades in, not try to catch a crab so that someone doesn't take our spot.
Gotcha. You start to go into a little bit of a mentality of like, just don't mess up now. We got it. And you got it. There you go. Second place.
Yeah, risk reward at that point. It was like, well, we could do something, wild and stupid, which may get us close to Australia, and we also may catch a crab and end up in fourth place as well. So by doing that, high risk strategy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, wonderful. How did you feel as soon as you crossed that finish line?
Ask this guy. There we are.
Looks like a lot of pain.
pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool feeling. It's like it's like I'm sure you understand. It's like elation and exhaustion at the same time.
Yeah.
The thumbs up seen across the world. There it is.
Deep breaths. Okay. You didn't puke, so I guess you can still go a little harder, right? Yeah. Congratulations, though.
I was gonna say one big picture thing with this race is that I don't know if you thought this, Gemma, but after this race, I was like, we got interviewed by NBC after this, like the day later, and they were interviewing they wanted to interview potential Paralympians or whatever. So that race was the first time. Like I knew selection for Paris was only going to be, this is in mid-September, right? So I knew September in January, only like 4 months ahead, was going to be selection for Paris. So I was like, this is the first time I thought, like, this is the first real time that I thought, man, Paris could be real. This could happen based off this result here. So
yeah, it's amazing how one good result can just suddenly feel like it's opened up an entire universe of new possibilities. It's a beautiful feeling. I'm glad you got to experience it.
that was awesome.
I was watching this race from a coffee shop. I was doing work and I had my phone open. And I had it playing with like the volume kind of down. I still wanted to hear what they were saying. And as soon as it happened, I was like, yes! And I didn't realize like I was making all this noise. Everyone outside, because it was a beautiful day here. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing? Because it was pretty early. I think this was like, what, like 7:30, 8:30 a.m. our time or something like that?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Love it.
Hey,
Amazing.
there's Todd looking around or something.
Like taking it all in. I was being my usual goofball self on the medal stand, asking like the medal presenter was like kind of a famous rower guy, so I was asking about his race. He's a gold medalist from 2000, so I was like asking about his race, and Jem was like, "What are you doing, man?"
Camera's over here.
Right? Am I wrong, Gemma?
No, I was like, just take the medal, like just take it.
Exactly. What are you talking about, man?
Todd's running an ad hoc podcast on the podium stand.
Thank you for humoring me, Gemma. Thank you for humoring.
Stay on target.
Oh,
Stay
man,
on target.
So I guess we can do more podcasts, but spoiler alert, I think what came next was the boat was qualified. You both then qualified yourselves for the team again. You both went to Paris in separate boats this time. Apparently Gemma was the good luck charm, Todd. I'm sorry to say. Just silver's pouring out of her. But no, you guys have both had great races that you talked about earlier. That was really cool. And it was really fun watching you all, on TV properly, with big NBC watching the Paralympic Games and walking in and everything. I was taking screenshots on my computer the whole time and sending them across. That was really cool. Well, we got a couple more things we wanted to cover, and then we'll wrap up if that's good with you all.
Yeah, all right. I think I'm sort of ready for this question. Let's see.
Yeah, this is the lightning round questions for you. So I guess the first is, what's something spid that you've been doing lately? And we'll start with Gemma.
Oh no.
We'll start with Todd.
Okay, perfect.
Something spid that I've been doing lately. I don't know. I've been working a lot. I got a new job, but I've been biking a fair amount, which the weather's been really nice. And my wife is getting ready for like a bike trip in Portugal, her and her friend. So I've been riding with her. Like I ride a lot on the Concept 2 bike, but I actually like been busting out my road bike and actually riding on the road for once, you know.
Well, and you've got your other actual the podcast going. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's true. I do have a podcast too. Yeah, which has been really fun. So we have to maybe get some of y'all on.
Awesome.
That'd be great. All right, Gemma, you've had 30 seconds.
Okay, so I guess a little background needed for this. So not so spid, but maybe it actually is spid. I injured myself leading up into Paris, and destroyed my knees and all of that. So the really spid thing is building back and trying to figure out like working out and like finding my rhythm, not in the rowing world anymore. So lifting and doing whatever lifts I want to do, doing yoga, walking, and having fun without having like a coach and a training program like that you have to follow.
Totally.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Love it.
And then I think the reverse is, anything not spid happening lately?
No, my whole life's pretty spid.
Life is only
Amazing.
spid. Wow. Must be nice.
I saw that question. I was like, anything crappy in my life? I don't think so.
Hey,
You never know, Todd.
Things are going pretty well. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy.
we'll take it.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I think now we're at probably one of our favorite new segments, which is brand new. The paint is still wet.
Yeah.
We have actually, do you want me to introduce it, Steven, or do you want to introduce it?
You got to set us up for this. I mean, this is incredible. I can't wait. I can't wait until we produce this and we put the clip in, because it's really a work of art. It's incredible.
It's really something else. So I say this, it was inspired because I want to say at least twice, if not thrice, Steven has dropped into our text message and or phone conversations the true Southwest of America. What in tarnation?
What in tarnation are you talking about, Peter?
Tarnation.
Tarnation.
I'm like, oh man, if this came from anybody outside of Tucson, I'd probably think they were really a whack job. But it was incredible. So we have our latest segment, which is What in Tarnation?
Howdy, folks. Welcome to What in Tarnation.
What in
With Steven.
tarnation? All right. For the inaugural episode, I bring to you the Gila monster that fell into my mom's backyard on Wednesday. Let me see if I can get these photos up. But yeah, I don't know. Have either of you heard of a Gila monster? Yeah, they're pretty nifty. They're one of two. Let's see if I can get this window here. They are one of two venomous lizards in the where is it? Where is it? One of two venomous lizards in the United States. That's all right. We can add the picture later. And yeah, this Gila monster, they're really beautiful. They're about up to 2 feet long, beautiful orange and black bands, and but they're not exactly very agile creatures, right? So somehow one of these Gila monsters crawled out of the wash behind my mom's yard, up onto a wall, probably 3 or 3.5 feet high, maybe more, and was just laying up there. And she happened to see it, and it started to crawl down into the yard, and it just immediately like flopped onto the ground like a sack of potatoes. They had to call the fire department to come fetch it and put it in a bucket. And yeah, this is the kind of what in tarnation moments that we run into on the regular around here. Oh, there it is. Peter's got it. There's the Gila monster. Look at this. Look at this beauty. Yeah. So yeah, this is
terrifying.
Oh, they're like I said, they're not very agile, so you have to really try hard to get bit by one of these. They got about a 1 mile per hour speed limit, you know. There it is.
I was thinking,
Flop down off of the wall. Poor sad Gila monster.
Chunky.
Yeah. So
how is she chunky? The way that I was thinking about the Gila monster, that's where they discovered the GLP-1s like Ozempic in.
I think
Really?
so. Yeah, they have some interesting
they're
components in their
the Gila
venom.
monster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the venom, exactly.
That's absolutely incredible.
because they have like super slow metabolism. So they were trying to, figure it out, and they found this molecule which controls like your appetite and all that. So
Somehow, how they get that
Okay.
ridiculously large badonkadonk tail. Something about those GLP-1
yeah,
drugs and their venom.
I wanted to bring an honorable mention to What in Tarnation.
Please go ahead.
And I think this is the OG What in Tarnation. And you know what's coming.
No. Is it happening?
This is, well, it was technically shot in Monterey, but I guess it gets a Tucson honorable mention. This is from the #1 gravel cyclist in the country who put his legs on Instagram, I guess after a training ride.
nice.
Apparently, Keegan
That
Swenson.
is Keegan Swenson's legs, yeah.
That's
And
that's alarming. I I have had him tear my legs off many times here in Tucson in the shootout, and whether his legs truly look like that or not, I can't confirm that they work very well. So
oh my gosh. But I literally looked at that and said, what in tarnation?
entire nation.
Well, hey, I think with that What in Tarnation, we can wrap it up this week. But before we fully wrap it up, so Todd, Gemma, you guys are kind of doing your own thing post Paralympic careers here, at least at the moment. Where can folks find you if they want to either see what you're up to or not? But it is, either social media that's on the public side or otherwise things that you're doing.
So I actually just made my Instagram private again, so you would have
Amazing.
to drop the follow request. But Instagram is Gemma Kate __.
Nice. I have an Instagram that's public that I put a lot of stuff on, or I used to. I kind of dabble here. I go in waves, right? It's called Engine Room 23. That's like engine room is a rowing term, right? And this is like just give you the context. Like in an 8-person boat, which is sort of the primary boat in a lot of college and high school teams, the middle 4 rowers are the 4, big knuckleheads who just pull until your legs fall off, who don't row very smoothly, but are physically strong. So I was always in the engine room, surprise. So Engine Room 23. I did have a podcast. It's me with another guy, this guy, Eric Von Frolic. He's a fitness professional. He was also diagnosed with Parkinson's. It's called An Athlete's Journey. And, we talk about like the daily struggles of like living with Parkinson's and how we kind of like deal with it for sort of like an athlete's perspective, and how, talk about workouts and how we're feeling. And, we've been getting some cool guests in too. So
Amazing. Yeah, I've been really liking seeing the little soundbite content come through online on that. And Steven, we might as well ask where we can find you.
Well, and this time next week, you can find me in Berlin, Germany. But on the internet, I'm most active on Instagram as well. My handle is call me Schaefer, call.me.Schaefer. That's SCHAEFER, truly spelled like a real German would. Um,
Amazing.
yeah. So look for me there. Also very active on Strava under my non-Western true name, Steven Schaefer. So
And you can find you back here on Spidcast. So
episode 3 in the works already.
Todd, Gemma, thanks so much for sharing your story. I think we'll have more to talk about as long as you're willing to come back. Yeah, we will catch everybody on the next one.
Thanks for
thanks for
having
the support.
us.